Look out, it's Faith Talk Live. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe. Look who's there with us.
Yes, she is a live wire, and we love having her on the show. It is Cynthia Garrett. She is a talk show host. She's an author. She does it all from Orange County, and that's where the cool people are.
Yeah.
Cynthia Garrett, how are you?
I'm good. It's good to be with you guys. I always have a good time hanging with you. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, you're our newfound friend. I don't know where you've been. Where have you been? I mean,
where have you been all of our lives?
I'm kind of like Esther for such a time as this.
Yes, I like that. Yeah.
I'm out of hiding.
We wanted to catch up with you a bit. There's so much to talk about, even the short span from the last interview. I guess it's been about a month, maybe 6 weeks. But we've had all kinds of craziness going on here. Just today, this was announced. I want to get your spin on this. Kanye running for president in 2020. Is this calculated? Is this just because he's bored? What do you think? What's going on here? Does he have a plan?
Yeah, I think once you have $1 billion, you're always bored and you don't have to have a plan.
Yeah, very true.
I think maybe that's what it is. And you know what? I got to tell you guys, I mean, I don't know. Part of me feels like, has he really gotten advice about this one? Because I'm not so sure that any of us really understand all of the things you actually have to give up to run for public office.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So, and I, for one, have had a couple of friends in my life. I had one friend in New York City who used to get asked to run all the time for stuff. And I mean, he was a real big, important, wealthy billionaire. And he looked at me and he literally was like, why would I do that? I'm rich. Yeah. And I said, well, I would love to have, a friend who's president. And he's like, yeah, that's great, Sin. But, I don't want to give up making money. And it was true. He was a true businessman. And so I don't know. Oh, he's already missed my husband just brought me in a headline. He's already missed the ballot deadline.
Yeah, that's what I said. Good luck getting on the ballot in all 50 states. I mean,
yeah, what is it? Texas, New York, and Illinois. I think he's already missed. I mean, we do have the primaries.
Yeah.
Those two exist for a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think you guys, don't you kind of think maybe he knows what he's doing? Like,
yes.
Yeah. I mean, look, I start stringing together comments, right? Bob Johnson said, maybe Black Lives Matter should form a third party. That's kind of terrifying to me. Cause I mean, I'm not convinced that as an organization, they can, I don't know. I don't know how organized they are. So let's just leave that right there.
Yeah.
But he could be thinking, hold on a second. I'm going to do this and get my own party funded. And maybe this is, maybe it's somewhat of a serious run this time around, or maybe it's more of let me build a base for the next election.
Right.
I kind of have a lot of thoughts about it. I'm almost afraid to tip anybody off to them because all of those thoughts could work in favor of the way I'd like things to go down. I'm a little bit like, yeah, sure. Sure. He could win. Go for him.
Yeah.
Vote for him.
Very interesting. Cynthia Garrett here. You can catch her show, The Sessions with Cynthia Garrett. It's really cool. Her latest book, we talked about it a bit last time, I Choose Victory. It is an amazing book. Now, since that time, Cynthia, folks have read it. They've talked about it. You've interviewed people. What are they saying about that? How has it impacted their life so far?
I think it's doing something that I really hoped it would do for a lot of people. When I was with you guys, I don't know, about the first time, maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, I said, what I've learned on this journey of mine is that most people do not choose to be victims. It's just that they don't know how to choose victory. And so what I really wanted for this book is that it would teach people how to make the choice. It would teach them what the tools are to actually go from, hey, I don't want to live my life as a victim, but what do I do? Where do I start? And I think that seems to be the case I have a very good and a longtime friend. He's a Jewish attorney. And the other day, and this is one of like the greatest compliments for me, the other day he called, I heard him on the phone with my husband, and he said, you know, this book is so powerful. He said, wow, I'm kind of blown away. And he said, even the faith undertone in it doesn't put me off. And, you know, and he's like the dream crossover audience I would have wanted to get. You know, someone who's not necessarily a Christian, but someone who sees the actual reality in the lessons that are taught, and someone who also says, you know, faith is a lot more important perhaps in the spiritual climate of my soul, you know, than I was thinking. So that was a really and is a really good thing.
Awesome. Cynthia Garrett, you can find out more at cynthiagarrett.org and see the shows, the sessions there on cynthiagarrett.org, also on ichoosevictory.com. Cynthia, let's talk a little bit about the 4th of July. We were talking before we got started live here about your fun 4th of July and how you saw fireworks everywhere, even though you weren't supposed to.
Everywhere. And this is I'm telling you, it literally, if I could have called Gavin Newsom, I would have said, yo, Gav, check it out. Black people, we love fireworks. I mean, you just come over here to my mother's neighborhood. African Americans are patriots, and we don't believe the lie. There were more colors in the sky.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about my mom. It was like my mom's neighborhood, all the way for 10 minutes to get to the 405 around, let's say, La Tijera. We call it the Magic Johnson Starbucks. So for those of you in California, you kind of know the area. And then all the way down the 405, because I'm in Orange County, I'm down in Laguna. So we go through everything, you know, all past the airport, down past Huntington Beach, through Long Beach. The fireworks were on both sides of the freeway, and it literally looked like we were driving through a tunnel of fireworks, like the big kind, not the little one. I couldn't believe it. I've never, ever in California seen that many fireworks. So the moral of that story is they're lying to people. Black people are patriots. We love fireworks.
And so even though they banned the public fireworks show, you got your fireworks anyway.
That's all people wanted anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the day that they made fireworks illegal in California, and I thought that's a killjoy. Why would they do that? Because and you know, people who wanted them still got them.
Yeah.
But the point is, it was so controlled that you really didn't have to, because you knew you could see them. So you know, they shut down all the fireworks all up and down the coast: Malibu, Santa Monica, Laguna, Dana Point, and it really did not matter because the inland paradise was lit.
Leave it to Americans. We'll have our fireworks anyway.
Yeah, and rightfully so. Yeah. I mean, I got to tell you, I was really reading a lot, you know, in all seriousness, about a couple of people who, you know, kind of said, I love this country, but 4th of July doesn't mean the same to me as it does to a lot of people, because I've had this, you know, this injustice in my life, or I've been hurt about this, and, you know, and I get it, but what I don't get is really and truly not understanding that there's no place perfect on this planet. You know, I've traveled all over the world, and every time I come back to the United States, I'm a walking rendition of the Star Spangled Banner. This is literally the best place in the world to live. It really is. And I mean, it's so great. People are dying to get here. And I do mean dying to get here. You guys know that. Yeah. So I often wonder, like, well, if this 4th of July means that you don't love everybody, or it means that you're a racist, or, you know, saying, you know, I like Independence Day means that you're in some way a horrible person, then I think the minority of people, and I mean minority in number, right. Maybe you should move somewhere else. And I don't mean that like a thumb your nose. Like, I've really been like, maybe you should move somewhere else, because if this isn't the place for you, then why are we fighting over what this place actually is? It would be like me deciding that all of the things that I've gone through in my life that have really given me the foundation for my book, right? It would be like me deciding that I basically hate my country and I hate everybody. Well, I hate I'd have to hate my parents too, because, they didn't know that I was being sexually abused by a relative, but maybe they should have known. So then I probably have to hate my grandparents for giving birth to my parents, because, my parents should have known.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, at what point do I just have to say, okay, life is no longer to blame. I got to carry my own cross. It's my responsibility to choose to take my hand and try to play it as best as I can. And that's really, when you don't really, I think, and this is a whole other conversation, but I see sort of this big kind of turning away from faith in our country over years. And, my heart is ministry. It's why I founded Cynthia Garrett Ministries, right? But it's really, really a big deal, because when you don't have faith to ground your life in, you will choose and live like a victim in your own mind. And I think it's one of the lessons my father taught me, and he was truly victimized. I mean, my dad, I think I may have shared with you last time, my father became one of the wealthiest men in this country in the late 50s, all through the 60s, early 60s. He was buying and controlling white banks in the South, in the state of Texas.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Senator McClellan, who was a real racist, good old Democrat boy who's actually got his own interesting history, because 1 year before they sort of came after my dad when it came out that he and his business partner were Black and owned these white banks, and hauled him in front of a Senate investigation subcommittee. Well, then this is the same guy who led the Democratic Party against the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And a week after my father got off the stand, led the Democratic Party to vote against the 1965 Voting Rights Act. And so it's like, that to me that's an example of racism. My father, and it wiped my parents out. And, I'd often say to my mom, well, after dad went through this high profile case and spent a year at Terminal Island and came out, what did you guys do? And she said, we rebuilt our life. We went right back into real estate and we rebuilt our life. And then they ended up becoming big foreign investors in the Bahamas. My dad thought, I'm going to go to a Black country where Black men make all the decisions, and surely this won't exist there. And you know what? He eventually had just as many problems, in a Black country. And it's interesting because before he went to heaven in 1999, one of the last things he said to me was, there are good people Black, there are good people white. He said, I've had just as many problems with both. And he said, at the end of the day, you need people to do anything in life. And that was a big, valuable lesson, because I sat there thinking, how could my father, who's experienced so much loss because of racism, how could he have this moral revolution of his soul? But then I met Nelson Mandela and I realized he had the same moral revolution and evolution in his soul. And,
Wow.
Love that. Cynthia Garrett, CynthiaGarrett.org. You can see her stuff. You can buy her stuff, iChooseVictory.com. Right there in Orange County, there she is, and we love having her, Cynthia Garrett. Cynthia, I got a couple of quotes here from you that I really, really love. Listen to this. I don't know if you remember saying this. I'm sure you do. You said this: never be content in a box. That sounds like you.
Totally. Yeah, totally. You know what? Because I think we're so capable of doing so many things as human beings. And I love young people, and I love to speak into young people's lives, because young people, for the most part, you haven't had a lot of negative experiences that have told you what you can't do. And even if you have, it's like they're still young enough and dumb enough, like I was, right? to think I can overcome this. My father said I could. That was always my thing, right? My parents told me I could. But, that statement is, I remember when I first started working in Hollywood, which was always my dream. And I remember it was very much like the music industry that my brother, who's a singer, experienced. They like to put you in a box. Here I come, and I thought, well, I like to host talk shows, but I'm also a writer, and I've written screenplays, and sold TV shows, and I also paint, by the way, and it's like I love to do different things, and so I feel like that's kind of how I express myself, and if we're all really free to express ourselves, I think that if you give children that environment, they'll express themselves in a number of ways. And then you'll realize that there's a common thread that runs through all of the ways they express themselves, the different mediums. But Lenny Kravitz, when he first started, I remember for years him fighting the record labels who wanted him to be an R&B artist because he was Black. Like, you can't do what you're doing. And he's like, I make the music I make. Yeah, but it's rock and roll. You can't. You gotta make R&B music. And he could have. It's just the music that naturally comes out of him is rock and roll. Yeah. So he always chose to just be true to himself. And at the end of the day, he had to make his own first album, to get his own career started. But see, that's kind of what I mean. It's like, there's a lot of stuff that tells us no, but if we tell ourselves no, we're dead.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Cynthia Garrett, CynthiaGarrett.org. All right. You do the show, and it's a great show. In fact, they can see some of the clips on your website. You're talking to a myriad of people, different backgrounds, different skills, giftings. So far, your favorite show, what do you think?
Oh, wow. I mean, I tend to like the ones that are with people who are not like what you would expect to find, because my programs air on TBN around the world, and then also on Cynthia Garrett Ministries YouTube channel, right? And so for me, I think it would be hard to say who's the best, but one of my favorites is a guy named Sam. Sam, what's Sam's last name? They call him the Machine Gun Preacher. And they made the movie. I don't know if you guys remember, there's a film called Machine Gun Preacher starring Gerard Butler and Michelle Moynihan. And it is about Sam Childers. And it's about Sam and his work in Africa. But Sam was a hardcore, biker gang heroin addict, and had a radical encounter with Christ, changed his entire life, and started going over to build an orphanage for kids it was in the South Sudan at the height of Kanye's war over there. It's a crazy story. And Sam reminds me of John Brown, because Sam basically knew how to do things one way: love Jesus and carry a rifle. And and I was like, there's all, in the Bible, I've always been the girl that related to Jael, the prophetess the woman who drove the tent peg through the head of the enemy, right? More than I did sort of like the sweet, more, demure ones. I'm like, you got to go to war, man. Sometimes in this world, you have to go to war against evil. And that's Sam's motto. And he started rescuing little children and their families were getting slaughtered, and they were getting sold into the rebel forces and just forced to do all kinds of horrible things. And he just thought it was wrong. And so he started fighting back. And Sam now lives permanently in Africa, and you can Google him and find out stuff about his ministry for anybody who's watching, because he's amazing. And every time I watch that movie, I'm crying at the end of the movie, giving. I gotta give again to Sam's work. He's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's funny you mentioned that, and it brings it back around to your book. I think that's part of his choosing victory. I mean, it may not be what everybody would, the typical way that everybody might think, this is how you go into ministry. He's choosing victory for those kids, and it's doing good work.
Completely, and I honestly, I think the climate that we're in today is really, look, I would have never thought this book would have come out and my world would look like it does. I mean, I had no idea. And that's usually when I know that it's really a God thing. And the book, sometimes I'll look at things in it and I'm like, I know this was God, because I don't understand how I couldn't have had the foresight to know that this book is the exact book for this. I mean, for this entire year, but also for where I believe that we are as individuals in this nation, as spiritual people, in this nation, as believers and as unbelievers. It's like, it's really a book that I think kind of cuts through the nonsense. And I think about it, and it's like, I actually just am at that place in my life. I'm not much interested in nonsense. I can't stand fake anything. I look at the news and I find myself praying for my fellow citizens, right? Because I'm like, you got to do the research. Like, we can't be lazy. You can't listen to a quote and not go research the entire context that the quote was made in, because I mean, and love him or hate him, fake news it's real. I mean, I see it, I'll see something and go, I heard that statement, or I'm sitting here looking at the transcript, because that's me. I just won't take what someone tells me to believe, and it's kind of crazy to me that we live in a nation of people who are so willing to follow just whatever they hear in a soundbite.
Yeah.
Like, no, I remember I turned on CNN the other night. They weren't even playing anything of what the president did for Independence Day at Mount Rushmore. And then I'd flip over to Fox News and catch some of it. And then, then later on watched the whole thing back through, because I like to do that so I know who's telling the truth, right? And I was really shocked. Like, CNN kind of had its own position on everything, and statements about, they said something, he made divisive comments. And I was like, no, actually, no, he didn't. And there are words that he said that I want to put right back in his mouth, but
Right.
He didn't say anything divisive. I mean, he celebrated our country, unless it's divisive to say, if you deface Mount Rushmore, you got to go through me. I mean, I'd probably say the same thing too, like, leave Mount Rushmore alone.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't really, I feel the same way as I do about free speech on all of these issues, right? Like, I want to remember my history. My history of the things that have been painful for me in my life are my source of strength. There's a thing I look at and I go, you're a bad chick, man. You made it through all this. Like you can do it. You know what I mean? It's like, seriously, yes, you can, right?
Yep.
And so I don't understand this whole rewrite history, cancel culture. I don't get any of it. Because by the way, I also don't get how you would allow, someone was telling me that Nancy Pelosi was going through the White House and she was removing pictures of some of the speakers. And I'm like,
oh gosh.
Well, are the Democrats just trying to erase what they actually did to blacks and then telling blacks that it's to help us? Like, are we so weak as people that we can't handle the fact that some of our heroes may have been flawed? Like, I mean, and why are we making heroes out of human flesh anyway?
Yes.
To me, there's only one perfect God, and he's still on the throne.
Yeah.
Now look, I mean, I wouldn't want to send my kid to a high school named after, a slave trader. I get it. And if I was Jewish, I wouldn't, want to go to Hitler High. Like,
right.
I get it. But like Lincoln and George Washington and, I mean, oh my gosh, I watched this guy, Waters, right? He went out on the streets on 4th of July weekend.
Right.
And did you see that? He's asking college kids what they thought about 4th of July. First of all, I literally, I like the head blowing emoji. I was like, what are they learning in school? Nothing.
Yeah.
Parents, ask for your money back. They didn't know anything about they did not know what 1776 was relevant to. They didn't know. This one girl said, oh, George Washington. I mean, I don't know. Wasn't he like a colonel? And Waters says, no. And, oh no, I think he was a president after Lincoln. Sometime.
Oh gosh.
My gracious.
But they know Common Core math. That's important.
You couldn't make it up, you guys. You could not make it up. That's That's how you get to a group of young people that want to cancel culture.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, they don't even know what they want to cancel.
Yeah, you're
That's so
you're
good.
right.
Cynthia, we got to go to a break. You are always amazing. We love to catch up with you again. CynthiaGarrett.org. Go there. IChooseVictory.com. See her stuff. Read her stuff. We got to have her back.
Yes, she's awesome.
We love you. We'll talk to you soon. We'll be right back. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
This is Faith Talk Live.